The lecture hall fell silent as Professor Alina Grant projected the holographic image of a Terran wolf onto the crystalline display. Around her, 43 alien students shifted in their specially designed seats, their various appendages fidgeting with nervous energy. The topic of today's lesson was apex predator psychology, and for most species in the galactic community, the subject was nothing short of terrifying. "Notice the eyes," Alina said, her voice calm and measured as she gestured toward the wolf's forward-facing gaze. Binocular vision. Depth perception optimized for tracking prey across vast distances. This is the hallmark of a pursuit predator. A Quillarian in the third row released a series of clicking sounds that the translator interpreted as distressed agreement. The insectoid being's compound eyes reflected the hologram in kaleidoscopic fragments, and its mandibles trembled visibly. Alina had grown accustomed to such reactions over her 3 years teaching at the Confluence Academy. Earth's admission to the galactic community had been controversial, to say the least. Humans were the first apex predator species to achieve spaceflight before destroying themselves, and the only Death World species to seek peaceful integration rather than conquest. The galaxy was still adjusting. "Professor Grant," came a melodic voice from the front row. "Sarah," a graceful Lyorian whose species descended from prey animals, raised one of her 4 delicate hands. "Is it true that humans still experience the hunting drive, even in civilized society?" Alina smiled, though she knew the expression might unsettle some students. Showing teeth was a complicated gesture in mixed company. "We do, though it manifests differently now. Humans channel that drive into competition, sports, problem-solving, and even our approach to science. We hunt for answers rather than food." She advanced to the next slide, which showed various Earth predators: tigers, eagles, sharks, and finally humans. The contrast was deliberate. Where the animals displayed fangs, claws, and obvious weapons, the human image showed a woman in casual clothing smiling at a sunset. "But here's what makes humans unique," Alina continued. "We're not just apex predators. We're persistence hunters who evolved empathy as a survival mechanism. We needed to cooperate to read emotions, to work in packs. This combination of predatory instinct and social bonding is why Earth was such a paradox to the galactic community." A small voice interrupted from the back corner, barely above a whisper. "We learned about the wolf bonds in cultural studies." Alina turned toward the source. There, in the isolation pod designed for the Academy's most vulnerable students, sat Ree. The young Kashari cub was no larger than a Terran house cat, with downy fur that shifted between silver and blue depending on her emotional state. Her species, herbivorous and highly anxious, rarely left their homeworld. That Rhea's parents had been brave enough to send her here spoke volumes about their hopes for the next generation. "That's right, Rhea," Alina said warmly. "Wolves are pack animals. They form deep emotional bonds, care for their sick, and mourn their dead. The same traits that made them effective hunters made them capable of domestication by humans. We recognized something of ourselves in them." Rhea's fur flickered from blue to a cautious purple. Through the transparent walls of her pod, Alina could see the cub's small paws kneading nervously at her cushioned seat. The isolation pods were meant to help anxious species acclimate to mixed classrooms, but Alina had always found them heartbreaking. They reminded her too much of cages. "Now," Alina said, pulling up a new image, "let's discuss the neurochemistry of predatory behavior. The rush of adrenaline, the focus of the hunt, the satisfaction of—" A small chime interrupted her. Rhea's pod had activated its communication request. The entire class turned to look as the cub's translator activated. "Professor Grant?" Rhea's voice was trembling but determined. "I have a question." "Of course, Rhea, you can ask me anything." There was a long pause. Through the pod's walls, Alina could see Rhea's fur cycling through colors rapidly, blue to purple to a pale pink that the Kashari cultural database indicated meant vulnerability mixed with resolve. Finally, Rhea lifted one tiny paw in the traditional Kashari gesture of formal request. "Can I sit by her?" The lecture hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Desiree gasped audibly. A Quillarian dropped its datapad with a clatter. Even the stoic Granthian in the back row, whose species barely registered emotion, released a pheromone cloud of surprise. Alina felt her chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't quite name. In 3 years of teaching, no student from a prey species had ever voluntarily approached her outside of required office hours. Most kept at least 3 meters of distance, and here was Rhea, the smallest and most fragile student she'd ever taught asking to sit beside an apex predator. "Ree," Alina said softly. "Are you sure? You're welcome to stay in your pod if you feel safer there. There's no pressure." The cub's fur stabilized to a steady, determined pink. "I'm sure. You said humans evolved empathy to survive. You said they bonded with wolves. If a wolf could trust a human, maybe—" Her voice grew quieter. "Maybe a Kashari could too." Alina felt her eyes begin to sting. She'd forgotten how quickly humans could tear up. Another predatory trait repurposed for social bonding. She blinked rapidly and nodded. "I would be honored," she said. The pod's door unsealed with a soft hiss. Ree emerged on unsteady legs, her small form looking impossibly fragile as she navigated the steps between tiered seats. The other students watched in absolute silence as the cub made her way to the front row, directly beside Alina's lecture podium. Alina slowly lowered herself to sit on the floor, making herself smaller, less threatening. Ree approached, her whiskers twitching with each breath, and finally settled onto the cushion beside her. The cub was close enough that Alina could feel the rapid flutter of her heartbeat through the air. "Thank you," Ree whispered. "I was tired of being afraid." Alina smiled, carefully keeping her teeth hidden this time. "You're the bravest student I've ever taught." As she resumed her lecture, Alina noticed something remarkable. One by one, other students began adjusting their seats, moving incrementally closer to the front. Sra shifted forward 1/2 meter. Even the Quillarian stopped clicking its distress. Perhaps, Alina thought, this was what the galaxy needed. Not humans proving they weren't monsters, but prey species discovering they didn't have to live in fear. And sometimes all it took was one brave cub lifting her paw and asking a simple question. The lesson on apex predator psychology continued. But everyone in that room knew they'd learned something far more important. That trust, like evolution, begins with a single small step forward.